I want to welcome everyone to our final session of our annual missions conference. Thank you all for being here this morning. Looks like most of you have found the breakfast line, so this is going to be fairly informal during the Sunday school. Feel free to get some refresher along the way if you wish. We're going to have 4 speakers this morning, or speakers representing 4 different groups. There may be more than one person with some of them. So just a reminder of a few things. On the tables, you'll see some placards that have names of countries on them. And Mary Robertson has done a lot of work in putting some information about some unreached countries. And I think if you didn't realize there was more information in them, you would just think that's part of the decor. It is part of the decor, but there's information in there. So take full advantage of looking at those. And I think most of you realize there's some display tables for many of our mission partners in the back, and be sure to interact with the missionaries there if you haven't done so here, and see what materials they have. And of course, we're going to have Sunday main service right here afterward. We anticipate everyone stay where you are in your tables, so what you've claimed is where you'll stay through the entire time. We will finally be breaking down all this and getting back to the regular auditorium seating afterward. If some of you feel so led to stay and help with that, so much the better. And so I think we'll go ahead. I'm going to introduce. Let me just say a prayer before we get started. Father in heaven, what a blessing it is to meet together in fellowship and to share sonship in you. We thank you that you have called each one of us. You've gone after that one person individually, and we thank you that we can be here and share. Pray that your Spirit would open our eyes and ears and hearts to what you have to say to each one of us today, and how you might use us in your service going forward. We ask that you would speak through your servants as they share their passion with us today. For we ask this thing in Jesus' name. Amen. So, first we're going to hear, and I'm going to introduce all 4 of them, and then I'll just sit down. I think that way will be the smoothest, so they'll know to follow each other. So, from Family Promise of Gwinnett, we're going to have Mitzi Fountain first, and then just wait one moment. And then after that, we'll have Matt Davis from Obria Medical Clinics. Following that, from International Justice Mission, we have Rony Jacob and Jooliana Krummel to come share. And last but not least, Grant Haynes from Global Frontiers Mission. And then following that, one other thing, if you have not gotten a little white ticket like this, if you have one, there's going to be a drawing at the end for a little prize for some special person. And so with that, we'll just have Mitzi come on up and start.
Well, thank you for having me. I do want to just start with one quick question, and I'll have a few questions dispersed throughout, but how many of you are familiar with Family Promise of Gwinnett? Raise your hand. Okay. Still several that aren't, so that's why I'm here, and I want to inform you of what we do and who we are. So I am going to share who we are, what we do, and how you can help. Who we are. Family Promise of Gwinnett has been around for a little over 18 years now here in Gwinnett County, and our primary mission is to mobilize churches and the community to end homelessness one family at a time. And you will notice that it said families. So our program is designed for families. The families that come into our program are typically single moms with children. We will accept a 2-parent household, but you have to have children to be in our program. And If you are familiar with Family Promise of Gwinnett, you know that for the first really almost 16 years, we had a particular model that we did. It was very innovative approach because Family Promise of Gwinnett is a part of a national organization which has over 200 affiliates. And what was innovative about it is the families that were experiencing homelessness were actually housed in our local churches. Many of the counties, if you don't know, aren't particularly fond of shelters, and so churches have the power to use their properties how they wish. And so our families would rotate from one church to the next for up to 90 days at a week at a time. So did Redeemer house families at one time? Okay. Well, there was this thing that happened, you may be familiar with, it was called COVID. And COVID really displaced us as an organization. And how it displaced us is the churches had to close their doors for a certain amount of time, and we had to find a place for our families to go. And Carol Love, our executive director, had to get creative, and so we were creative for several months until it got very expensive. We were putting our families in extended stay motels. And if you're not familiar with extended stay motels, they're extremely expensive, and we couldn't maintain that kind of program for very long. Well, the Lord laid on Carol's heart a new vision of what Family Promise of Gwinnett could look like because of the changing environment and how could we house families that were in this traumatic experience. And lo and behold, the Lord, as he does, opened an incredible door with the city of Lawrenceville as well as with a local church, St. Edward's Episcopal Church. And we were able to open the first official shelter in Gwinnett County. And that shelter is about 20 minutes from here, so we are local missionaries. And so our shelter is called Promise Haven. I'd love for you to come back and see at the table what that house looks like. It is not a shelter you would ever think of seeing. It's beautiful. And we house 3 families at a time. And during that time that they're in our program, like I said, 30 to 90 days, our volunteers, which would be you, hopefully, could partner with us, and our churches now do local mission trips, is how we've defined it. You would come and serve our families for 1 week at a time, or in a community environment where you can serve throughout the year, bringing dinners, showing the gift of hospitality is what we like to say. You serve as an evening host for about 2.5 hours in an evening. On the weekends, we do want our families to be able to stay at Promise Haven, have some downtime, take care of laundry, take care of things they need to with their children. And so we have day host as well as our overnight host. So back in the day when the families were in churches, our churches were having to provide overnight hosts every night of the week. Well, now with Promise Haven, we only ask our volunteers to serve on Friday and Saturdays because we have a house manager that lives on site. She has an efficiency apartment, and so she lives there from Sunday through Thursday and serves as our overnight host. So we ask our volunteers to sleep for Jesus on Friday or Saturday nights, and that's actually what I like to do. It seems to be the easiest thing, but we actually have a very nice bedroom for our overnight volunteers to serve from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And so that's another way for you to serve. And one of the big things I did want to share just a couple of Bible verses because this is really the heartbeat of what Family Promise of Gwinnett is. And then I'm going to share a testimonial with you. 1 John 3:16 through 18 says, "By this we know love, that he laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth." And one of the things that I like to say when I'm speaking in situations like this, or even volunteers that are asking, is this is the opportunity to show the gospel. This is the opportunity to show the gospel, to show what Jesus would do. And as well as you know in James 1:27, is religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction and to keep oneself unstained from the world. We've given you an opportunity, and we say this: we could not keep our doors open without our volunteers. Statistically, our organization is run 98% by volunteers. If I don't have a dinner host to show up with a hot meal, guess who gets the meal? I do. My husband and I have been out, and someone didn't show up with a meal. Unfortunate events happen, emergencies, but we race and pick up pizzas, or we run to Publix and get fried chicken. It is vital for this to run, because we do actually have some obligations, obviously, through the city of Lawrenceville to run a program that they are pleased with so that we can keep our doors open. But we hope to do this far and wide in Gwinnett County, because let me just tell you, the need is great. One of the statistics I share, because children are the unseen victims of homelessness, is that 1 in 16 children will experience homelessness by the time they graduate high school, okay? And that's not a statistic that's just set out in some other foreign land. This is here in our state. So just keep in mind, we're not seeing homelessness, but it's there. I did want to share one story with you. Her name is Stephanie Patra, and that is her real name, and I'll share a little bit more about her story, but let me just read this quickly. It says, a few years ago, I made the mistake of reading Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, and consequently launching my family and me into several weeks of organizing purgatory. I hadn't been able to dispose of anything that had even an ounce of sentimental value since my sophomore year of high school, which was also the year my daughter, Giselle, was born. Unknowingly, the byproduct of my family's becoming homeless when I was 13 years old resulted in deep psychological consequences that followed me well into my early adulthood. I thank God and Marie Kondo for bringing that book into my life and recognizing the need to purge my life of all those meaningless possessions I'd been hoarding over the years, mountains of old clothes with high school size 0 jeans I'd never fit into again, an extensive collection of my daughter's toys she hadn't played with in years, folders and folders of my daughter's preschool artwork, the court drink coasters from Pineapple Willie's in Panama City Beach on spring break, and the notes my 6th grade friends had wrote each other during detention, and even the disgusting remnants of my first set of acrylic nails. Clearly, I had created a pattern of clenching to any good memory and saving those warm feelings in the shape of junk. There was even a huge, ugly throw-up green couch where I enjoyed napping during my entire pregnancy that I stored in our shed for 6 years, much to the neighborhood raccoon's delight, because I couldn't bear the thought of parting with it. I would be brought to tears whenever my family would even entertain the idea of trashing it. Amidst the tidying up, in the form of stuffing clothes in over 20 industrial-sized black trash bags, I came across one of my favorite old sleeping t-shirts. It was an XXXL white t-shirt from some generic, corny Christmas Santa Claus saying on the front in red font. The red font was barely legible, and holes had formed at the bottom. I remember grabbing the t-shirt up, quickly tossing it into the garbage pile, and then almost immediately reached back for it. I lifted and stretched out the t-shirt in front of me the way people do when they are physically holding a memory before them. I've read this, and I'm still getting emotional. It'd been over a decade, but I could still remember the face of the Family Promise volunteer who had gifted it to me on Christmas Day long ago. As quickly as I could remember the kind of face of the woman volunteer, I could also remember the anger, the hurt, and the ungratefulness stirring in that little girl's heart. I distinctly remember thinking they shouldn't have wasted their money on such a stupid gift and just bought more things for my little brother because I never wanted to wear this t-shirt. The joke was on me. I did wear that t-shirt for years. For years, I found comfort in that big T-shirt to sleep in, and I was so emotional at the act of throwing it away that I even had to hug it tightly before I placed it back in the garbage pile. When I look back at the moment that T-shirt was gifted to me by the Family Promise volunteer, I can see that God was planting the first real seed of selflessness inside my heart. Even in gratefulness, God allowed me to realize Christmas wasn't about me, but about others. In this instance, my precious little brothers, it was about my precious little brothers. From this little seed would sprout the most beautiful fruit-bearing tree of serving that still grows strong today and continues to expand in the form of many branches and organizations where I love to give my time. A couple of years after the birth of my daughter, I remember that sharing with people about the time my family spent at Family Promise of Gwinnett changed from embarrassment to proclamation. I loved telling anyone about this amazing organization right here in our local community. During my senior year of high school, I even led a volunteer event for a canned food drive for Family Promise and asked Brent Bohannon, who is now at Habitat for Humanity, that was our former executive director, to speak at my high school to raise awareness for the program. Now in my late 20s, I find myself continuing to share about Family Promise wherever I can, and I'm proud to say that my family graduated from the program years ago. Upon graduation, my parents were able to secure a mortgage loan for a beautiful 2-story, 4-bedroom home in Hamilton Mill. That house saw me through my sophomore year of high school until I left home and started my own family. That house provided comfort and saw my stepfather through his long battle of renal failure until his death in 2011. Most importantly, that house saw my widowed, single mother through 8 years of raising my 2 little brothers into the responsible men they are today. Through God's favor and Family Promise of Gwinnett, that house paved the way for my mother to have a home to raise her 3 children. Stephanie, the teen mom turned Penn State University graduate, who has devoted most of her career in the legal field, fighting for immigrant rights. Nathan, the U.S. Air Force junior officer, majoring in aeronautical engineering, and the U.S. Army junior officer majoring in electrical engineering at Georgia Tech. I urge and encourage you, those that are reading this article or sharing this article, to share about Family Promise. If you've ever thought about giving or volunteering, now is the time. Every dollar, every hour, every meal, every social media share, even every old plain white T-shirt donated matters. God bless Family Promise of Gwinnett. She served on our board. She served on our board for 3 years. She since has gotten so busy that with her family, and they have a legal firm that they work at. But it's just an incredible story, and there's so many like that. I could go on, but please see me at the table. I would love to get you plugged in, and I hope to have Redeemer plugged in as well. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. All right. That was like the good church good morning, right? That was awesome. So my name is Matt Davis, and I am over community outreach for Obria Medical Clinics Gwinnett, formerly the Pregnancy Resource Center of Gwinnett. We are the only, well, I have to say this the right way, we're the only accredited, nonprofit, life-affirming prenatal care medical clinic in Northeast Georgia. And I say prenatal care because the last time I was here, first off, the last time I was here, shortly after was a pandemic. So if it happens again, it's still not my fault. Okay? All right, just like it is not my fault. Yeah. you stay quiet. You stay. But since I've been here, we've added on prenatal care, which has been really, really cool. Because what that means is that is low to no cost, full prenatal care for our most vulnerable neighbors. That means the uninsured, the underinsured, the undocumented, the homeless, those without any support anywhere. Those are the women we see. And uniquely, last year we had a couple come, and I'm going to have to, right, we're in church, so I need some of y'all to do a little bit of mental gymnastics with me, but I need you to temper that with grace and humility and understanding what our world looks like now. We had a couple come in that no one else would see. No one else would take them in, but here's why. The husband, or the person that identified as the husband, was the one who was pregnant. The person that identified as the wife was biologically male. So the husband's biologically female, the wife is biologically male, and they're pregnant. And no one else would see them. So if you think about that, they're giving birth, and it's still beautiful. No matter how they see themselves, when we know how God truly sees them, we know how God sees that child. That child is still loved and cared for, but no one else would see them for their prenatal care. So they came to the Christians, and we loved them, and it was just this amazing journey. Now, they didn't do what we call our supportive pregnancy care, but they wanted to go on it just by themselves. But still, they were cared for and they were loved. And I don't know a better way to share how we do than to say that those who even the world isn't going to love very well, we're going to love them. Even though they identify in a way that the world might say, oh, this is great, this is wonderful, we love your expression, but we can't help you. Then they came to us. The people who are supposed to be the mean ones, the people who are supposed to say, we don't care about you, we don't love you, get away from us, right? That's the image that gets said about us as Christians. They came to us, and we loved them, and we walked them through their pregnancy. And it was beautiful, because it's still a baby, because it's still someone that is deserving of life. And the thing, right, it's not just the child who deserves life. It's the mother and father, no matter how they see themselves. That's the unique thing about being able to do prenatal care at the level we do, is we can see the people that nobody else wants to see. We can take care of the people that nobody else wants to take care of. We had a young woman last year who came in and was planning on having an abortion because her boyfriend was so abusive. But she came to us. We put her up in a hotel for a few nights, walked her through how to get to safety, helped her get back in touch with her family in Florida. When she got her stuff out of her apartment, she had a police escort. Again, it's not because we're just, oh, wow, we're so amazing. It's because we follow Jesus first. And Jesus allowed that process to happen. She moved back to Florida, and we got pictures and thank you cards of this sweet baby boy that was not going to live, but for her coming to us and for God being able to use us in that way. Right? It's awesome. So that's why we do what we do. It's why we do prenatal care the way we do. We also do well woman care and STD and STI testing and treatment for men and women. We still have everything that we do is still the same with just more added on, which is part of the really cool announcement is that we've started a capital campaign to purchase our own building. So we're looking at space. My executive director, Robin, looked at a space the other day. She really likes it. It's been really, really cool. And then the add-on, right, to not just do what we're still doing, but to also add on pediatric care. To be able to be the place that does. You can clap. It's okay, Nadia. Go ahead. Yeah. To be able to be that place that not only do we get to serve the mom and dad, but we get to serve their children too. Because it's still hard to find care. Gwinnett County is still kind of a desert in ways for a lot of medical care. As much as we have here, as rich as we are in Gwinnett County, there's still a lot of people that are not rich, that don't have what we all have, right? And they're homegrown, they're born. It's not just, so I've heard a lot of people say, oh, is it those foreigners? Well, first off, calm down, because we're all foreigners. The big thing is that people need care. They need to be loved and cared for, and that's what we're here for. And we're here and doing it because of churches like Redeemer, right? Because of places like Great Harvest that have really good food. Just a quick plug. But it's fun to come here, right? Because I went to this church when I was a little kid, and Mark still remembers me as being a punk. And then he comes up to me this morning and says, your daughter's got your personality. I was like, yes, thank you. I'm aware, very aware. But it's fun to be here. It's fun to be around Christians who understand what it looks like to love those that nobody else wants to love, to care for those that nobody else wants to care for, and to be a place that when you come from New Jersey, after being in a big church for 16 years, and you come to a smaller church and you go, wow, but the heart here is amazing. The want to love people is amazing. That it's not just about how do we make our church look good. It's how do How do we love our community so that our community knows they're loved? So just thank you. Thank you for loving us. Thank you for caring for us, and thank you for praying for us. Love y'all.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rony, and it's a pleasure to stand before all of you to representing International Justice Mission. Just before I start, I just want to show you a glimpse of what slavery looks like and what we are fighting against on a day-by-day basis.
This guy had a little girl, and he was a slave in a brick kiln. The slave owner would not let him leave when his daughter was sick to seek medical treatment. And they said, you know what, she'll be fine, nothing will happen to her, just keep working. She turned for the worse, they begged to leave. He said, no, finish your work first. And then his daughter died. And he literally had to bury her at the brick kiln. And the owner wouldn't even let him bury his own daughter until after he'd finished making his bricks.
Bonded labor is slavery, where you're actually working out your loan and lose all the freedom that you have. It is usually on the basis of an advance, but then you belong to the owner after that. There is absolute restricted freedom of movement, restricted freedom of employment. You don't get the wages that you deserve. Somebody owns you and everything that you make. We have seen people trapped for generations on the basis of a very small loan amount, as small as $3 or $5. There are millions of people trapped under slavery, waiting for someone to show up. We are coming. We will find you, and we will free you. We will persevere till all are free.
To help give you a context, this is what life looks like even after we talk about independence, we talk about freedom in this 2023. There is slavery that still exists in different parts of the world. The country that I come from, India, we have gone into 70 plus years of independence, but slavery still exists. And it's very much disguised. It may not be chains and shackles nowadays, but it's very much in every industry that we have. I mean, the very fabric that we wear, the very brick that we build our house with. So if we look at our casework model, IJM works in such a way that we work with the governments in different parts of the world. We operate in 17 different countries with 29 offices across the globe. And we operate with the governments of those particular countries in fighting those evil issues or these kind of atrocities that happen against the vulnerable in our society. To start off with, IJM was founded by Gary Hogan in the year 1997. He was one of the lawyers with the State Department, and he was also heading the Rwandan genocide investigations for the UN. He saw the amount of atrocity and violence that's been done against the poor, and that motivated him to look at the global scale of violence against the poor. The poor and the vulnerable are most often attacked, and the violence against the poor is what is still prevailing. And that is one of the main reasons for him to come out of those systems, and he started this movement where he brought about passionate lawyers, social workers, and criminal investigators to go about and tackle this issue of slavery. So we operate on three different casework types. One is the police abuse of power, the other one is slavery, and the violence against women and children. These are the broad three casework types that IJM works on. The country that I come from, I had the privilege of knowing or being with IJM for the past 12 years, and my exposure to IJM was through my university days. I grew up in a comfortable family where everything was perfect, everything was normal. But my exposure to the field of violence through IJM opened up my eyes to the atrocities that happen around us. And that was a big eye-opener, as well as a lot of, I would say, it was hard to digest. I did my first internship with IJM in 2011 with IJM Calcutta office. The IJM Calcutta office focused on the issue of sexual exploitation of minor girls. Children as small as 5 to 10 years are targeted by the ruthless people. It is hard. It was heartbreaking for me to step into those fields. We used to go into the field to scout for victims, and the way we operate is we work with the authorities in terms of developing evidence, in terms of, without the evidence, I mean, nothing works with the court systems back in India, and there is a lot of corruption as well in the country. So you might ask, how does it help? We work in such a way that we have to equip, I mean, there's a lot of laws that are there in the country that are very much well equipped, but in terms of implementation, that's where it lacks. And IJM comes in to play such a role where it identifies the gaps in the system and tries to plug in that gaps by training the police officials, the people in authority, to identify and understand how to implement the laws in a better way. And we went into those fields on a day-by-day basis. It's not easy, it's challenging, but with the will of God that we serve, I mean, we are able to proceed every day on a day-by-day basis. The kind of violence that we see on a daily basis is just heart-wrenching. Another issue that we work on in India is bonded labor. Bonded labor, as you saw in the video. I mean, a small family, a poor family, get entrapped into the system by borrowing a small amount as small as $10 or $15. And they end up serving generations after generation. A father who is in need of a dire medical situation in his family will end up borrowing $15, which is nothing in a country like US. But in a country like India, it is a huge amount for people who are poor. And they get entrapped, and they get lured into this trap in terms of it can be a job, it can be a debt. And this debt promise is turned into a vicious trap where generations will end up serving for that master. They are not allowed to go out. They don't have any freedom to move out of the facility. They don't have the freedom to take care of their children. Sometimes, there's another incident that I would like to share where I had an exposure visit through IJM to one of the remote parts of my country where people are still bartered. You won't believe, children and men, women, and children are bartered for animals. That's the kind of slavery that still exists in some of the corners of the world. It is a social evil, and sometimes the social evil is so entrenched into the society that even people who are implementing the laws will support that. So that is the kind of violence that we see on a daily basis. And to break these chains, I mean, we need people to support us. And being on the other side, before moving to the US, I had the privilege of working with IJM in India, in the office, in the state called Tamil Nadu, in the city of Chennai. The Chennai office that I worked with, I mean, we worked on the issue of bonded labor. It was such an issue where we helped people free from brick kilns, rice mills, rock quarries, where the work conditions were atrocious. The kind of, situation that they live is inhumane. And we were able to free people from those realities, and the people that we freed are now living in freedom. From shackles to freedom is the kind of experiences that we see. The story reminds me of a lady called Pachema. She was one who was rescued by us, our team in Chennai. She was very much afraid to come to the forefront when we rescued her. She was so beaten up. She was so much traumatized by the amount of violence that she had to face in her life. But from that point of rescue to now, She has grown up so much that she is now fighting. She's one of the survivors in the forefront of our survivor community, fighting for people like her who are enslaved in the community. When I speak of her, a few months back, she was here in the US, to speak to some of the churches, to speak to some of the people here who support us. And I was so much moved by the fact that from a lady who was intimidated by authorities, now she's leading the fight. She's one of the she comes from a very backward community in our country, where the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are looked down upon by the people around us. And now she stands in a place where she is going to the minister's office. She's advocating for the rights of the people who are trapped in slavery. I had the privilege to accompany her once on one of the rescue missions, where she went about in doing the rescue, and it was such an amazing feeling to accompany her. There are moments when you are just, you feel so humble before such situations where, a slave was turned into an empowered individual, an empowered woman in the community, where she is going into the most darkest places and rescuing people out of the slave chains that hold them back. And she is now a forefront warrior in this fight for justice around the globe. She is one of the leading global survivor leaders for our community. And it's such an example. All these things are made possible by the supporters that we have around the globe like you. Another instance where you can partner with IJM is to become a freedom partner, where you can partner with IJM on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, to help support these rescue missions where we go into these darkest alleys, darkest areas to rescue people from the chains of slavery. And it is so encouraging, where you support them financially, you support them through prayer as well. There's this one time where I was encouraged by one of the letters from the US when there are days where we have ups and downs. In those down moments that we had, I remember reading one of the prayer cards that was sent from the US by one of the church people that pray for us. When you partner with an office, you're praying for each and every individual of that office that go into these dark alleys of oppression. And those words of prayer and encouragement is a whole lot of energy that we can push forward with. So just before I close, I would like to end with one more video just to show how you can be of support to IJN.
Right now, there are people trapped in slavery. People who have been taken, beaten, raped, and robbed of their dreams. Rupa and her child live in constant fear of abuse. Arul is crushed by the labor he's been forced to do every day. Lydia is hidden away, her body used over and over. At International Justice Mission, we have decided that this is not the world we want. So we unite, one body, many parts, working together to bring rescue. The heart in this body is the freedom partner, strong and dependable. You. Freedom Partners courageously give $24 or more a month, funding rescue, month by month, rescue by rescue, beat by beat. Without Freedom Partners, hands would not grasp, feet would not move, eyes would not see. Freedom Partners send rescue to restore Rupa's family. Give freedom to a rule. And make sure Lydia is found. It will take a strong heart to end slavery. It will take you. By joining as a freedom partner, you will bring rescue to slaves all around the world, telling those still in slavery, help is coming. Month by month, rescue by rescue, beat by beat.
I would like to close with a verse that you can all take back home in your heart. I would like to read from Isaiah chapter 1, verse 17. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, and plead the case of the widow. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Grant Haynes. I'm the Director of Global Frontier Missions. You guys have been supporting us as a church for about the past 5 years or so. We got introduced to you guys and really appreciative of all your prayer, your encouragement, your support. Back on the table, we've got an impact report. I'm going to use that as our guide this morning to give you guys an update on the ministry. Our mission statement is mobilizing, training, and multiplying disciples to serve among unreached people groups. Today, 2,000 years after Jesus gave us the commandment to go make disciples of all nations, there's still 7,000 people groups that have little to no access to the gospel. If you were here last night, you heard there's still a need for 1,600 different Bible translations. That many peoples, that many languages that don't have access to the good news of Jesus. We know in Romans it says, how can somebody say that Jesus is Lord? How are they going to call on the name of the Lord if they've never heard of the Lord? And how are they going to hear about the Lord? How are they going to hear about Jesus unless somebody goes to them? So our passion as an organization is mobilizing more people to get involved among unreached people groups, training people that want to go to those parts of the world that have little access to the gospel, and then making disciples that make disciples and plant healthy churches in these parts of the world. So the mobilization part of our organization, we do that a couple different ways. We're trying to get as many people praying and giving and going and welcoming to these 7,000 people groups. One of the tools that we use is this step-in study. We really like the Perspectives course. If you've never taken the Perspectives course, there's normally 3 or 4 of those going on in the Atlanta area. Highly suggest you sign up and go through that course. The problem is it's like 15 weeks and a few $100s and a lot of reading that goes along with it. So we tried to take the Perspectives course and shrink it into a 5-week Bible study that's a little bit more accessible for churches. So last year we had 800 different people go through this Bible study, and we got a lot of reports that, man, I'm seeing scripture differently. When I read the Bible, now I see nations, peoples, Gentiles, God's glory, all the world, all nations, all peoples. So this has been a really good tool that the Lord has used to help us mobilize more people, more churches to get involved among the unreached. We also host one-day kind of short-term missions exposures down in Clarkston. Our headquarters is down in Clarkston. There's 20,000 people that live in that small town, and 14,000 of them were born outside of this country. So a lot of you guys have been involved in Clarkston, volunteering with different ministries. We really appreciate that. Clarkston High School, if you go on their website, there's 65 different countries that go to school there. So we've got Nepalis and Afghans, Iraqis, Syrians, Congolese, Central African Republic, Congo. We heard about Congo last night and how that Bible translation was given to the Congolese people. So yeah, we would ask for your prayers for the people in Clarkston, and we use these one-day trips to get more people an understanding of the refugee process, what we can do to welcome people from all these different countries that are coming to Gwinnett County. We actually have a trip on March 15th. I know that's fast notice, but there's no cost to it if anybody wants to come. on March 15th and go through one of our one-day trips. We had about 150 people go through those last year. One thing that we did during COVID is take our one-day Clarkston trip with the teaching that we do on missions, teaching about refugees, teaching about the places that the gospel has gone to and the places that it hasn't gone to. During COVID, we couldn't really do short-term trips in Clarkston because there was social distancing and stay-at-home rules and everything else. So we packaged all our one-day program and made it available to people all over the country so that they could take it and do in their local context. Because you don't have to be in Clarkston, you don't have to be in Gwinnett County. The nations are coming to America. Statistics say that 13% of the U.S. population was born outside of this country. And people are coming from places where it's really difficult to get missionary visas. It's really hard to get into Yemen. But God's bringing all these people from Yemen to this country. Really difficult to get into places like Saudi Arabia unless you have a real high degree or reason to go to that country. Yet there's all these Saudi students that are coming to America to study in our universities. What would happen if we took the time to reach out to international students, refugees, immigrants, shared the good news with them, and they took the gospel of Jesus back to their own people, back to their home countries? So we do a lot of mobilizing. We try to speak in as many churches or small groups, host people that come on one-day mission trips, offer resources so that other churches can do one-day mission trips all over the United States so that more people will give financially, so that more people will pray for the nations, and hopefully a lot of more people will go to the nations as well and do a better job of welcoming the nations that are coming here. So that's the mobilizing side of our ministry. Mobilizing, training, multiplying is our mission statement. So we have a real passion to train missionaries really, really well. Statistics say that about half of all missionaries that go to the mission field don't complete their first term. Think about that for a minute. Every church that's doing a missions conference, every missions conference that's out there saying, guys, we've got to take the name of Jesus Christ to the ends of the earth. People are laying their lives on the altar saying, here I am, send me, God. I'll go to Indonesia. I'll go to Morocco. I'll go to Ecuador. Half of those people will be home within the first 2 years or so. So we've got a real passion to train missionaries really well to be ready for the spiritual warfare that they're going to encounter. Rachel shared last night to get people ready for 120, 140 degree heat, living in an oven. How do you even get prepared mentally, physically, emotionally for something like that? How do you get ready to have babies overseas and raise a family overseas? So we do missionary training a couple different ways. We have a missionary training school in Clarkston. We've got a missionary training program over in India. And by God's grace, we're trusting Him to provide the laborers for us to start a new program over in Thailand, either this year or the beginning of next year. So we do pre-field training, on-the-field training, and then online training. We've studied a lot of missiology, studied a lot of member care, studied the reasons why people leave the mission field, and crafted a 5-month training program that people come through online, and a 1-year training program that people can do in India or in Thailand to give them the Bible knowledge they need. We talk about the head, the heart, the hand. What's the knowledge that they need to be able to do missions really well? What's the heart? What's the character, the humility, the learning posture, not going in with a Messiah, Western, colonialistic attitude towards mission? And then the hands. What are the skills that missionaries need to go and make disciples and plant churches? So you guys can be praying for our mobilization efforts as we try to get more churches and disciples of Jesus educated on the unreached people groups of the year and of the world. And then you can pray for our training efforts as well. Last year we were able to train 20 missionaries in our Atlanta program, about 12 missionaries in our India program, and about 40 online. One thing that's really neat, when we took our program that we have in Atlanta and made it available online, we started getting people from all over the world that wanted to get our missionary training, which was awesome. We've always had all these emails saying, could you help us get our visa? We want to come to America, go through your missionary training. It's been really difficult to help people get visas to come to America to get missionary training. So when we put it online, we started getting people that spoke English, but they were in Bangladesh. They were in Pakistan. We had a whole group of people in Uganda that wanted to go through our training together. We had a whole group from Malawi that wanted to go through our training together. So there's these little missionary training schools kind of popping up organically in the global south, outside of the West. Because what God's doing, He's not just raising up Americans to go to the ends of the earth. God is stirring up the Brazilians and the South Koreans and the Nigerians and the Filipinos. That's the mission force of the future. And we as the American church have to figure out how to partner well with the global South and hand in hand work with them, equip them, be their encouragers, be their financial supporters, and do what we can to see the gospel go to every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. We had one guy, he was in Malawi going through our online missionary training school, and there's an assignment where you go on the Joshua Project and you type in your country and you look at all the different unreached people groups and you pick one to pray for. He recognized that one of them was about a 4-hour walk away from where he was. And he said, I can't believe there's an unreached people group that's 0.00% Christian, all Muslim, and this thing on Joshua Project says no missionary's ever gone there before. Why shouldn't I be the first one? And this guy has started going every single week to this unengaged, unreached people group, and he's sharing the good news of Jesus with this Muslim people group. So pray that God would continue to use our online program. We hope to maybe be able to develop that in a few different languages. It's only in English right now, but there's all these awesome brothers and sisters around the world. Well, we've heard from them. They say we've got really good, some places have good Bible schools, good seminaries where they can get grounded in God's word, but they don't have access to missionary training. How to cross a culture, how to learn another language. Some of the Kenyans that have grown up in Christian context their whole life, they don't know how to share with this Muslims coming from Somalia. We've got Kenyans that want to go to Thailand but have never seen somebody bow down and worship a statue and be involved with straight up idol worship. And they're saying, how do we go and talk to Buddhists and Hindus and Muslims about the good news of Jesus? So pray for our missionary training efforts. And then finally, multiplying. We mobilize, we try to get people excited about the Great Commission. We train people to do Great Commission work, make disciples really well among the nations. And then multiplying. We want to make disciples of Jesus, and not just disciples, but disciple makers. I got a really interesting phone call in October of last year. There was this guy over in Dallas. His name is Chris Galanos. He was actually the youngest mega pastor. He was like in the church growth magazines as the fastest growing churches in America. It was like number 2 in 2010, and it was top 50 fastest growing churches. It was one of those started in a living room and grew up to 10,000 people over 10 years. Once he hit 10,000, then he was like, I think maybe we should start 10 mega churches, and we'll do the satellite model. But then as he was praying into it, he felt like God gave him an even bigger vision than that he wanted to see a million people deciding to follow Jesus and impacted for the kingdom. And he decided that his megachurch model actually wasn't going to help them reach 1 million people. So he started training everybody in his congregation how to share their testimony, how to share the gospel, what you would do if a new believer decided to follow Jesus. And they basically closed the doors of their megachurch and just started all these little small groups and house churches and trained everybody to become kind of disciple makers and church planters. His family decided they were going to leave Lubbock, Texas, and move to Dallas, Texas, and they were going to focus on the Thai Laotian people. They tried doing feeding programs. They tried a couple different ministries to meet felt needs in the community. And what they found the most effective actually was going right into the Buddhist temple and starting to have spiritual conversations with the monks there. So on Saturday mornings, he goes in there and they do about 45 minutes of English and then about 15 minutes of Bible. There was a visiting monk one Saturday that really loved what was happening. And he said, hey, Chris, do you know anybody that would do anything like this in Atlanta? I want to work on my English and I want to study the Bible. And Chris is like, yeah, I know some people in Atlanta. So Chris called up our ministry and said, hey, there's this Buddhist monk that like really is interested in the Bible. Would you study with them? I was like, yeah, I'll follow up. I've been asking the God to sort of give me a person of peace that I can invest in, even if it's a long-term commitment, takes years to maybe see this person come to know the Lord. God had already been stirring that up in me. And I was like, connect us. So he connected us over text. I was like, hey, brother, I heard you're interested in practicing your English and maybe you want to hear more about Jesus. I'd love to meet up with you. He's like, yeah, why don't you come to my temple on Friday mornings? Does that work? I was like, yeah, I'll be there. I was like, where's your temple? He texted me the address, Zor Church Road. I was like, I think I know a church in that area. I had to look it up. I was like, yep, that's where Redeemer is. So I don't know if you guys have driven back by this place 100 times, but it is literally a 5-minute walk down the road from here. This guy studied to be a Buddhist monk and got as high as he could go in the country of Laos, and then he had to move to Thailand so that he could become a level 7 or a level 8 Maha, which is like one of the highest levels you can go. You read the Buddha documents in the original languages and stuff like that. But this guy is really hungry to know more about Jesus and understand the Bible. So we started going there in November, and I've actually been itching to tell you guys this story because I want you guys to intentionally drive home a different way, pray for that temple, pray for this guy. His name is Dom. Man, so we went in and we like, okay, let's start practicing English for 45 minutes, then we'll do some Bible. What do you want to practice English? He's like, could you tell me what someone needs to do to become a pastor in the Christian religion? It's like, okay, we can talk about that. The next day we went, he's like, in Buddhism, we monks, we're not supposed to listen to music, but I see Christians singing and raising their hands. Could you tell me more about songs in church? Yeah, we can do that. So we talked about praise and worship and what are some of the songs and different things like that. Always after English, we go into Bible study mode. A buddy of mine goes with me, Than. He memorizes a Jesus story every time we go. So Than will tell the story about the woman wiping Jesus' feet with her hair. And we'll tell that story 2 different times, and we'll say, could you tell the story back to us? And man, people from oral cultures, they have such good memories. They're not dependent on their devices and stuff like that. He'll word for word, verbatim, tell us back a Jesus story. And then we'll do some questions. What didn't you understand about the story? What did you like about the story? And normally he'll give us one of the lines from Jesus. He'll say, my favorite part was when Jesus said, your faith has healed you. Go in peace. After we did Jesus walking on water, we did Jesus calming the storm. We're like, what do you learn about Jesus? He's like, Jesus is really powerful. Yeah, I agree. Who do you think Jesus is? Well, Jesus said that he was the Son of God. Do you think that? Yeah. Jesus said that he's the only one that can forgive sins. What do you think about that? He said, yeah, I think that might be true. He's like, I really like the way Jesus teaches, telling stories. I like how he teaches with parables because it makes you think. He's like, I think some of the people at my temple might like some of these Jesus stories. We're like, they would? Why don't you go and share those with them? Could we talk to more of the people? So yeah, it's been really exciting, and I just really want to ask for your prayers. Maybe some of you guys even want to get involved. It's so close. I mean, it's half a mile down the road, and it would be so amazing if we saw Dom. He's the highest ranking monk in this entire region for Georgia, Alabama, Carolinas. He is the top of the food chain, and we're there every Friday morning. If you could pray for him, that he would come into Jesus' kingdom, and what an influence that could potentially have on they invited me to a party 2 weeks ago on Sunday. There were about 300 Laotians, Cambodians, Vietnamese, folks from Southeast Asia there. So you guys have this great mission field right here in your own backyard. So you guys live intentionally. Let's go to the nations. Let's pray to the nations. Let's give financially to other missionaries going to the nations. And then let's welcome the nations that God in his sovereignty and grace has brought here right to our own next door. And let's be intentional, loving our neighbors, and then sharing the good news of Jesus through our actions and definitely through our words. I'll end with the lyrics of a song from back in the 80s. It's sort of a picture of heaven, and somebody comes up in heaven and says, thank you for giving to the Lord. I am a life that was changed. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I'm so glad that you gave. I love thinking in heaven of everything that we did on this earth, the prayers that we did, the finances that we gave, the actions that we did are affecting people's eternal salvation. So just want to encourage you guys as we go into our main service this morning, as we do our faith promises, as we pray for the nations, as we listen to our speaker this morning and allow the Holy Spirit to spur us how he wants us to be involved in his great commission, how beautiful it's going to be someday when people come up to heaven and say, I'm here because of some of your prayers. I'm here because of some of your giving. I'm here because you got out of your comfort zone and walked into a Buddhist temple where you felt really uncomfortable, or talked to somebody at Kroger or Publix from a different country. Thank you for giving to the Lord. I'm so glad that you gave. We appreciate you guys.
Wow. So our mission field is across the ocean. Our mission field is in Lawrenceville, in Gwinnett, in Clarkson, right down the street. And here, I think we sometimes pray for God to have people walk through that door, but He's got them just a half mile down the road. That's pretty close. Thank you so much for all of you sharing. We have a break now for about 15 minutes, but before, does the person with the, yes, okay. We have one final door prize. So if you all have your tickets to get out, I'm going to call on Jooliana. Would you mind coming up and picking a ticket for us? All right. 079842. Must be present to win. You got one? All right. Very good. Okay.
Well, while you come up, I'm going to explain what your prize is. This is a cookbook. We have 7 recipes highlighted. You have to pick one, and then Mary, my wife, and I will fix dinner for you and your family, and you come to eat with us. How about that?
All right. Okay, so. All right, so we will be breaking, and where you are seated now, we kind of expect that that's where you'll sit for the main service. And so we have about 12 minutes or so. We'll reassemble here at 10:30. There's probably still more breakfast options, and just spend some time with our mission partners here in the meantime. See you back here at 10:30.